Cost per minute alone is a useless metric, yet everyone buys voice AI with it. Today I'll give you 6 reasons why it's broken, a real horror story, in which vendor who hit 3 cents per minute somehow made everyone lose money. 1. It tells you nothing about whether your calls actually succeeded. 2. It doesn't give you an insight into how much of the conversation was actually needed. 3. It's easily manipulated by picking cheaper providers. This is where the horror story lives, by the way. 4. It actually punishes picking high quality providers or choosing better infrastructure. 5. The number itself is usually calculated wrong. And 6. Some of the costs are not included within it by default, and this part actually can cost you up to 60% of the total cost of voice AI. So keep an eye on that one. Let's chat about each of these points in a little bit more detail. Number 1, success rate. Cost per minute alone doesn't tell you anything. Say one system costs 1 cent per minute and the other system costs 9 cents per minute. On paper, second system costs 9 times more. In reality, however, let's say that system 1 has a success rate of 10% and system 2 has a success rate of 90%. Then what you end up with is system 1 is essentially useless and causes you to lose your customers. And customer acquisition is much more expensive than customer retention. Therefore, second system is significantly cheaper because it doesn't cause you to lose your customers. Therefore, second system is substantially cheaper because it doesn't cause you to lose customers and you don't get repeated calls for the same issue. So anytime someone shows you one-to-one cost comparison, ask what is the cost per resolution? What is the cost per outcome? It is very important. Number 2, LLMs love yapping. They yap and yap and yap. If you look at the conversations, I bet 20 to 30% of what the LLM is saying is essentially useless. Cost per minute alone doesn't pick up this signal, and you pay more than you actually have to. Number 3, and my favorite, 3 cents horror story. A BPO owner asked a company to build voice AI at cost of 3 cents per minute, all in, LLM, TTS, STT included. This leaves very little room for margin. So the vendor had to get creative. Instead of picking STT and TTS that fit very well for the demographics, he chose DeepGram with 200 credits and kept on creating accounts until he wiped out all the credits and always plumbed in the same TTS and STT from them. Unfortunately, in these demographics, it simply didn't work well. He hosted an LLM that was very small, very cheap, could handle many concurrent sessions, which was in the contract, and works terribly. It was just too stupid to do its freaking job. He self-hosted the infra and kept the instances cold. That means that some of the times, whenever the instance wasn't already running, when somebody called, he had to wait 10 to 30 seconds for the instance to warm up. Imagine calling someone and waiting 30 seconds for the initiating of the call. Crazy. And the last thing he did, he cached responses like crazy. It did save cost per minute on paper, but in reality, people were getting answers that weren't fit to their use case, to their situation. The effect? All of this development was essentially useless. It wasn't working. Number 4. This is actually counterintuitive. Number 4. This is actually counterintuitive. Smarter LLMs with lower latency tend to cost more per token. However, they are better at following instructions. They understand the user intent much better. You get smaller amount of questions of back and forth. And thanks to that, the whole length of the conversation shortens, which in fact gives you lower cost in total, but higher cost per minute. So if the only thing you care about is cost per minute, will you include a change that actually improves the quality? Or rather, would you try to satisfy the metric that you agreed on, but sacrifice quality? Number 5, the cost that is usually calculated is simply wrong. First, the cost isn't flat. It's not that cost per minute is just a flat line cost per minute. LLM cost tends to increase over time. What that means is when you think about cost per minute, You think it's a, well, flat number. In reality, first minute may be substantially cheaper than the 10th minute. And you have to take this distribution of the cost over time into account. Without it, it's impossible to apply savings. Second, from cost per minute, telephony is usually excluded. This is also not really that obvious, and this part can actually take up to 70% of the total cost. You'll like the next point, which is, you guessed it, the telephony. Voice AI providers typically don't include the cost of the telephony, and it makes sense for them because it's a separate infrastructure. However, you have to take into account that in the outbound scenarios, when you are calling somebody, a lot of the calls are essentially hangups. And there's one more piece of information that you have to know. There is such thing called as incremental billing, which is, if there is 1 second of the conversation, it is counted as 60 seconds of the call. In the past, I had a situation where this one piece cost 70% of the total cost. I'm not kidding. Absolutely crazy. And it's easy to miss. So you may ask me what to measure instead. If cost per minute is so bad, what should I do? You can do one thing. Go to my website, calloptima.com, book a free consultation with me, and I'll help you. Or stay until the end of this video, in which I'll try to help you. Both work pretty well. I'll give you 7 points that you should take into consideration. 1. Success rate broken by task type. Success rate alone is just not enough. You have to understand which parts are working and which are not. Substance ratio. How big proportion of what LLM said was actually needed to perform its task. Cache false positive rate. If you do have caching, ensure that it does not ruin experience for your customers. Warm transfer context. This is a tricky one. You could have a situation in which LLM performed all of its steps incredibly well. Then it transfers the call to a human agent and it doesn't pass useful context. Make sure you evaluate it and keep an eye on that. Customer satisfaction scored with LLM evals. If possible, also break down by tasks. Cost distribution over time and ideally per component, per TTS, LLM, and so forth. And the last one, cost per resolution or cost per successful outcome. This metric truly incentivizes the vendor to perform well. So if you're drafting a large contract right now, make sure that your CSAT scores are not lower than the bottom 30-50% of human agents in your company. AI probably can do better, but ensuring that it does not do worse than percentage of humans in your company gives you additional level of security. Negotiate cost per resolution or cost per successful outcome. Get separate SLAs for infra, for models, for every moving piece within the system. That will help you understand the bottleneck and ensure the stability of the system. And if anyone ever quotes you 3 cents per minute, ask questions, how are they achieving that? Also, probably worth having a call with one of their past agents, if that's possible, obviously. I hope you really enjoyed this video. I love making them. Give me a comment on what you found interesting, what you'd like to see in the future videos as well. Make sure to also subscribe to my channel. And if you want to talk about voice AI in your company, free consultation is available on my website, calloptima.com. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.